Hi, I'm Nicole, and welcome to this special episode of the Nicole Stitches podcast. I'm a left-handed crocheter, knitter, and general crafter coming to you from Northern Virginia, where I work and live with my fiance and our cat, Webster. You can keep up with me on Instagram at NicoleSPDesigns, on Ravelry as she writes things, on Pinterest at NSP Designs, and in my Etsy shop, where I make and sell handmade project bags, notions pouches, and other fiber accessories. If you are new, I will stop right here for a moment and say that this is not a normal episode of the podcast. So if you are looking for that, if you're looking for my crafting progress, knitting projects, crochet news, etc., I'm going to encourage you to visit my channel to find my regular podcast episodes. They are titled and numbered, and there's also a playlist, so you can find all of my episodes up until this point organized chronologically. You can watch those if that's what you're looking for. You are more than welcome to stay here and watch the Q&A if you want to get to know me a little bit better, but I just wanted to make it known that this is not a normal episode. So that said, if you are new, hello, welcome. Thank you for choosing to click on this video and spend some time here. If you are a return viewer, welcome back. I am finally delivering on my Q&A video promise. There is a Ravelry group for the podcast really quick. It is linked in the description below. You can go there to find an introduction thread where you can join the group and introduce yourself. You can find the Q&A thread where you can ask me questions for a future video like this one. You can also find monthly giveaway threads, and that is where you will, hopefully in the near future, find some knit along, crochet along, make along threads. So, all that out of the way, here we are, Q&A video. If you have been with me for a long time at this point, I suppose, you will know that in late August, I had a vacation. My fiance and I went on a cruise to Alaska, and as such, I was without my computer and without internet access, but I still wanted to have something go up while I was gone so that I didn't leave an empty week between podcast episodes. So at that time, I put out a call for Q&A content on Instagram and in the Ravelry group, I think, and in the comments of one of my episode videos, and I asked for questions, and I did record a video to, answering the questions and everything, and then I just had a series of unfortunate events. The program that I used to edit was crashing, and then I think it broke the file, lost the video, basically. I could not, it broke, and then I lost it, and it couldn't go up. So it never went up. And I have intended up until this point to re-record and post a new one, and it just never happened. If you watched my most recent episode, you'll also probably know that I missed posting last week, which was a planned absence. We were also, again, going away, and I was going to be away from my computer and the internet, and I had wanted at that time to have something to go up in between, either a mini episode or a Q&A video. And I had grand plans to do that, and then to make a long story much shorter, I got very sick twice. I got one bug, and then right as that one was ending, I got another bug, and I was very ill for about 8 days, I think, 8 or 9 days, and it just didn't happen. But here we are. I did not want to not fulfill that video promise for a second time, or I guess a third time, so I'll record it now. Today is Thursday, and it is normally my video recording day, so don't fear, there will be a normal podcast episode up this week as well. This is just kind of going to be a bonus slash delivering on a long-standing promise. So, without much further ado, Webster is messing with the blinds as usual, so it's a good day. I tried to compile as many questions as I could. Unfortunately, I did not have my full list of questions anymore from the original Q&A video that I made, but I do have a good list here, a good compilation. I did organize them into categories, and I'll try to stick to those as best I can. These are from Instagram and Ravelry, and so I'm just going to get started. And the first ones I thought I would do are yarn and craft related questions because they seemed most relevant to the content of my channel. So my first question is going to be, what is your favorite type and weight of yarn? So this is a many layered response, I think. My favorite type of yarn really is going to depend on what project I'm doing. Overall, for yarn content, I strongly favor blends. So like merino cashmere nylon blends, or merino and just merino nylon, or merino and bamboo, or merino alpaca. blends, and that is because I have an allergy or a sensitivity to wool. If I am handling wool or yarn that is 100% wool and has not been blended with something else and or treated, so it's non-superwash, I will get hives and itching on my palms. I can develop a pretty good case of hives, or on my arms, and I can get congestion and just, it's a bad time. So I have found that when the wool is cut with something else and put in a blend, or if it is superwash wool, that helps reduce it a lot. That does not always fix it. For many people, their wool sensitivity is actually a problem with lanolin, which is the kind of natural skin oil of sheep. And so the blending or superwash process will take that out, essentially, and those people are fine. Sometimes it is still a problem for me, even after that. So I do a lot of touch testing when I'm shopping for yarn in a yarn shop. I will hold yarn and squeeze it, which I know we all do, but I will actually like try and rub it against my palm, and I'll actually walk around holding it for a while so that I can get a really good sense of if I'm going to react to it. I will try to rub it against my neck right here. I try not to rub it on my face just because of germs, and like if I'm wearing makeup, I don't want to smudge it on the yarn, but I try to put it here because most of what I make is going to be close to skin, and it's probably going to go around my neck. It's going to be a shawl or a sweater. So I do try to do a little bit just to get a sense of whether I'm allergic to it. So overall, that's kind of the favorite type, I guess. And then what I choose, again, depends on my project. I also am not a yarn snob in that I have no grudge against acrylic yarn. I know that there tends to be, people tend to like to go camping, as I call it. In this great yarn debate, there are people who are vehemently against acrylic, either just because it's acrylic, or, you know, they don't like the way it feels on their skin, or whatever. And there are people who are diehard devoted to acrylic. I fall in between. I have no grudge against it. As someone with a sensitivity, and as someone who likes to make gifts for other people, I love acrylic because it's budget friendly. It is easy care, so I can give something to someone else and tell them, you can wash that in your washing machine and dryer, and they're not going to ruin it, they're not going to felt it, or whatever. And that is my favorite type of yarn for making blankets, which I love to do as wedding gifts and baby gifts and general gifts. So that is definitely my favorite for that. And my favorite acrylic yarn, if you're curious, is Mighty Stitch from Knit Picks, followed closely by Heartland from Lion Brand. Favorite weight of yarn is fingering weight. I, like many other knitters, knitting podcasts in particular, I think, have many single skeins of fingering weight yarn in my stash that just need to grow up to be something. I need to figure out what they're going to be. But I've also come to develop an affection for DK weight over the past year. I love it. It works up faster than fingering weight, but it's not real thick and ropey or anything, so I'm liking it. I love a good DK weight sweater pattern. What projects are on your knit/crochet bucket list? Millions. Next, what technique do you use for color work, and do you find that it's easier being left-handed? So for color work, in knitting, I have only done stranded color work. So I have not done intarsia, and I believe, if I'm understanding correctly, there is a difference between stranded color work and Fair Isle. I don't really remember exactly what the difference is, but everything that I have done, I believe, is stranded color work. And I know that I hold the yarn probably entirely against the rules. I know many people who knit color work will hold one strand of one color in one hand, and then they will hold the other strand with the other color in the other hand. I don't do that. I knit English, by the way, so I don't use continental method, I use English style of knitting, and I will hold both strands in the same hand. So during Vlogmas, if you watch my Vlogmas videos, I actually included some video footage of me knitting color work. You can see me knitting on my Guthrie sweater, but I will hold both strands together, and then I will pick them up depending on what the chart says I'm supposed to be, what color the chart says I'm supposed to be using. And I have just found that that is the best way for me to maintain even tension between the two colors and to avoid gaps or tangles or what have you. It does mean that sometimes my yarn will wind itself around, like the two strands will wind around each other a little bit if I'm not paying good attention to how I pick up. But that's not a big deal. It never tangles. It just means that sometimes I need to rearrange my yarn. So for that reason, I don't find that it's easier or harder being left-handed. I didn't learn knitting any special way because I'm a lefty. I did learn to crochet left-handed because my right hand is actually rather weak. And I just could not hold and manipulate the crochet hook correctly in my right hand. But knitting I learned like everybody else, and I don't notice a difference. Knitting, that's a lie. Knitting on circular needles, I don't notice a difference, but when I used straight needles, which I really don't ever use anymore, I definitely knit differently. I would basically brace the right needle against my like leg if I was sitting down, or against my flat against my arm, and I would really just use my right arm to kind of hold things steady while and flick my working yarn while I did everything else with my left hand. So that was different, but working on circular needles, I haven't noticed that I do it differently than a right-handed person, and colorwork, I don't think I do anything differently other than holding my yarn incorrectly. Have you been or do you plan to go to Rhinebeck or Edinburgh? I have not been yet. I do plan to go someday. Adam and I actually had planned to go to Rhinebeck in 2018. I have a friend who does a lot of knitting, and her husband and Adam are very good friends. That's how we all know each other. And we were all planning to go together. We had looked into renting a place to stay, and we were going to road trip up. And for various reasons, it just didn't pan out. Adam's work at the time was extremely hectic and very demanding hours, and for that reason alone, we were looking at backing out. And then he had a other commitment that he could not miss out on that was scheduled at the same weekend. So we ended up not being able to go. But Adam has already suggested that we should go this year. So I don't know if he realizes that Rhinebeck this year is like 2 weeks after our wedding. And it's probably like 3 days after we get back from our honeymoon. So I don't know if he's thought about that part, and that would be just a lot going on all at once. So I don't know. I don't want to count my chickens. But I'm hopeful that we can get to Rhinebeck sometime, maybe this year, maybe next year. Edinburgh I definitely want to go to, but that is part of a bigger travel plan, I think. Adam has never been to Europe, and neither of us has been to Scotland. Adam's never been to Europe. So I think that if we go, we would make it part of a larger trip. And so that just requires more time and more planning and more money. And so it will probably be a couple of years down the line, but I definitely want to go. I've been wanting to go to Scotland for a really long time. I am of Scottish heritage, so I definitely am interested in going there and just seeing the place, and it doesn't hurt that Edinburgh happens there every year either. How and where do you store your yarn? Well, my yarn storage system right now is not the best. It is more out of practicality and necessity than out of aesthetics or accessibility, if that makes sense. So some of my yarn is in 2 large IKEA boxes to my left over here, and then 1 small one stacked on top. And then the rest of my yarn is in this closet in 2 large rubber storage bins. And then I have a couple of other skeins out in our living room in kind of decorative storage boxes. So it's kind of scattered all over the place, and that is just because I have a lot of yarn and we don't have a ton of space, and that's basically it. I did for a period briefly have my yarn actually on this bookshelf. This was a couple years ago now. I had it all beautifully displayed in these cubbies, and it was organized by like color family and indie dyers and different weights, and it was lovely. And then I adopted a cat called Webster. Reach up and one by one pull my skeins of yarn and cakes of yarn off the shelf. He never attacked them. He didn't want to play with the yarn. He literally just wanted to put it on the floor. And then sometimes he would get in the cubby and sit there. But yeah, so that made me have to change my yarn storage plan. And so I switched to these aesthetically pleasing IKEA boxes. They're like a light blue. They kind of look like a steamer trunk. if you know what the ones I'm talking about, if you're familiar with IKEA storage. But yeah, so I have some over here, some over there, some in the living room. It's everywhere. I do have it a little bit organized. The stuff in the IKEA bins over here is mostly knit picks stuff. Stuff in here is are mostly single skeins of indie dyed and sweater quantities, and then the other stuff in the living room is more indie dyed yarn. What will you be / are you crocheting lately? I miss your crochet updates. Me too. I ended up sort of taking a leave of absence, if you will, from crochet in the last half, really, of 2018, and that was entirely unintentional. I started as a crocheter. I was always and am still a much more confident and adventurous crocheter than knitter. But in 2018, I really wanted to become a better knitter. I wanted to stop being afraid of it, and I wanted to improve my skills, and along the way, I did do that, but I also got sucked into a lot of knitting projects as a result, which I don't regret. I love knitting, obviously. Here I am. But I didn't mean to set aside crochet. I actually had goals and plans of releasing a number of crochet pattern designs in 2018. That is something that I do. I have a handful of them, but not nearly as many as I want to have or as I intended to have by the end of the year, and those just didn't happen. I can tell you that you will definitely be seeing more crochet projects from me in 2019. I have at least 2 blankets that I need to make, and I always, with one exception, I have a lingering whip in the Garter Squish blanket, which is a knitting blanket pattern. It's free from Stephen West. I do have one of those hanging around, but otherwise, I crochet blankets. And I love to crochet blankets for loved ones as wedding gifts and baby gifts. And I have a wedding coming up this year that I need to make a blanket for, and then I have my own wedding that I want to make a blanket for. So you will be seeing those crochet projects, definitely. I have yet to decide if I want to do a pattern of my own design or if I want to find a pattern that I like. I've done both in the past. I usually design it myself. I come up with a design that I like and I go from there, but I have used other people's patterns previously. But I'm thinking that at least one of them will probably be original, which will be fun to share with you. And then I do want to get back on my crochet pattern designing. I have really enjoyed it. It is a little bit challenging because it's kind of mathy and a lot of trial and error, and then you have to get them tested and all that stuff. But I have really enjoyed coming up with designs and then sharing them with you. So yes, 2019, I do plan to bring crochet back into the game. And I'm sorry that I kind of crapped out on it during 2018. That was not intentional. How do you store your knits? I store my knits. Most of my knits at this point are shawls. I have a few sweaters now, but mostly they're shawls. And I have heard that you should not, or that it is not ideal to fold them, because sometimes if it sits on the shelf folded for a long time, the fold lines can kind of indent themselves permanently or semi-permanently into the piece. So I try to keep them more rolled, if you will, to try and kind of combat that. But our closet, my side of the closet, has 2 tiers of shelves. So there's a top shelf that I can hang clothes from and then one underneath it. And I keep my shawls rolled up on that second shelf so I can reach them and I can see them, because I cannot reach the top shelf of my closet. It takes a lot of jumping and sometimes help from a hanger, and I basically make a fool of myself. But I keep them rolled nicely on that shelf. When we have a different space, I would ideally like to have a better way to do that. And then my sweaters, I have also heard that hand-knit sweaters can suffer from hanger bumps, and I'm nervous about that. So I keep them folded in half, like if you have a shirt and you fold it in half, and then folded over the hanger that way. And I've kept them like that for this winter time because I've been wearing them, but I think when it's warmer weather and I need to store them more permanently, I will do something different, because I don't want to put creases in my work. So if you have suggestions for how to store your knit sweaters in the off season, please let me know, because I have no idea what I'm gonna do. Last one that is craft related is, how did you learn to sew? Well, I don't remember. So I don't know how much of my kind of crafting story I have shared in the past. I think I gave a brief overview at one point when I first started my podcast, but I come from a long line of crafty making people. particularly on my mom's side. She grew up on a farm in very rural upstate New York, and that was a farm that her family had had for many years, and most of them, if not all of them, were in some way making something all the time. They were creative people. And it was pretty common then, especially in that area, to do things like make your own clothes and knit your own winter wear and make your own, home items. And that stuff was all very common. So actually, we are very fortunate in that we have a number of heirloom pieces in my mom's home that are passed down from generations. Embroidery pieces that are from my grandmother, my great-grandmother. We have some quilts that are quite old. And my grandfather, so my grandmother did a lot of needlepoint and such. And my grandfather mostly did carpentry. We have some dishware that he made and some other pieces around the house. I was very close with my grandfather, so they are quite special to me. But I've kind of just always grown up around it. There was a period when my mom was younger when she made almost all of her own clothes. And then my two aunts have also done a lot of sewing, and one of them does a lot of paper crafting and needlepoint, and we've all kind of dabbled in everything. So I've really always been around it for my whole life, and I cannot look back and pinpoint a particular time when I sat down and learned to sew. It was kind of just picking it up along the way, here and there, from really watching my mom and my aunts do these things. I would ask if I could watch them, or I would ask if I could help, and they would teach me a little thing here and there, and I just kind of learned over time from that. Shortly after college, I kind of got on a kick of wanting to learn how to make garments, and so I did a lot of learning at that time about those things. Not very good at making garments. I have like a 25% success rate, but it is what it is. And yeah, so really it's just kind of been all cobbled together over time. So I'm going to move on now to non-craft related, kind of like personal and other questions. I'm going to start with, what are the colorful books on the shelf behind you, and what are the posters behind you? So I'm sitting on the floor right now, as you probably figured out, but this is my normal podcasting background. Normally I pull a chair over here. I've been filming in front of our Christmas tree for the past couple weeks because it was the holidays, but our tree is down, and this is the room I normally record in. It's just kind of in disarray right now, and I didn't want to deal with it. So I just popped a squat here on the floor in front of my bookshelf to record this video for you. But this is my normal podcasting background. You just normally see my head floating like right here, and you can see my Funko Pops. I don't think you can normally see these ladies in the podcast. I think I usually block them, but they are characters from the TV show Orphan Black. Shout out to Orphan Black fans. I think I talked about them in a Vlogmas episode. I'm not really sure, but you probably know that there is a line of books behind me on the shelf in the podcast, and they are a set of rainbow books. So those are Penguin hardcover classics. They are the Drop Caps collection, and they are a set of 26 books, and they are in order from A to Z based on author last name. So it is not one series of books by one author. It is a collection that Penguin put together, choosing classics. So I just grabbed a couple to show you. So for example, A is Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice, which is my fave. And then they're called Drop Caps because of these covers. So here I also grabbed Steinbeck, which is S. You can see the drop cap. A drop cap is basically a fancy letter that is used in a book. It's usually used on the first letter of the first word. Sometimes it's only on the first page of the book, and sometimes it's every chapter. But that is a drop cap. And so for each one of these books, they chose an author by last name in alphabetical order and a classic that they wrote. They did a drop cap for the front, and then they put all the books in a very aesthetically pleasing color order. And also, the edges of the pages are like dyed to match, which is just so, it's so pleasing to me. But yes, that is what those books are, and I am obsessed with them. And as for the posters behind me, there are a few. I think normally when I record the podcast, you can only see 2 of them, but there are 3 things hanging there. So there's a big poster that's usually on this side of me, and then there are 2 things that hang over here. They're just on top of each other. So usually you can't see the upper one at all, I don't think. But the big poster that hangs on this side of me is, don't mind my can of ginger ale. The big poster that hangs on this side of me is a scratch-off poster that was given to me by my friend Kelsey, and it is 100 essential novels, and it's a scratch-off. So you can, there's little pictures of the book covers and you just scratch off the cover, or there's gold foil on it, you scratch off gold foil to reveal the cover when you've read it. So I have actually not finished scratching it off. I started and then my arm got really tired, so I think I have 3 or 4 rows left to check and scratch off. But that is the poster that's hanging up here. The piece that's over here, which is the lower piece, is a print of a girl reading a book. The artist of that piece is named Emily Winfield Martin, or her Etsy shop where you can pick up pieces of her artwork. She has some books out, some children's books. She does prints and postcards and other things from time to time. It's called Black Apple. And I really, really love her art style. I've loved it for years, and there are definitely other pieces by her that I would love to have someday, but this is the one I've got for right now. And then above that one, which you usually can't see, is a piece by my friend Carolyn of Velvet Hand Designs. She's a Murderino maker just like me. Hi, Carolyn! And that one is a portrait of Tina Belcher from Bob's Burgers, dressed up like Jane Austen, and she is searching the English countryside, I like to imagine, for butts. If you are a fan of Bob's Burgers, you will understand why that is important. But yes, that is the artwork that hangs behind me in every episode of the podcast. Carolyn is also a very lovely and extremely talented artist. I have several other pieces by her in my home, and I'm sure that someday I will have more, so you should go check her out as well. I will link her in the description of this video. Have you set a wedding date, and how is the wedding planning going? Yes, we have set a wedding date. I think I've mentioned it before. Our wedding will be on October 5th of this year, and wedding planning is finally starting to kick into, like, regular gear. We made a lot of decisions pretty early on. We got engaged in July, and fortunately we had kind of talked about the things that we would like for our wedding before we even got engaged, just hypothetical ideas that we thought would be fun or nice. So we knew a lot of the things that we did and did not want, which helped a lot. And we had our venue within a couple weeks of getting engaged, and then from there, our venue requires you to use one of a list of specific caterers. So they give you a list of like a dozen places and you have to pick from there. So that by default narrowed down our caterer choices, and so we picked a caterer pretty quickly after that, and I happened upon a photographer I really liked after that. So we made a lot of decisions really early, and then we had kind of nothing to do. Because it was just too early to do much of anything else. It was too early to send out save the dates or invitations. It was really too early to start doing a lot of the like crafting, because I planned to make a lot of things, some signs, some programs, some centerpieces and stuff like that. It was just kind of too early because there would be no good place to keep it, and it would be hanging out and stuff might get broken and all that. So we kind of just got to chill out and kick back for a little bit. But now that it is January, we have just under 9 months left to the wedding, and stuff is starting to kick into gear. So we are in the process of sending out our save the dates. Fortunately, thanks to the holidays, we were able to deliver a number of them in person, which is lovely because the cost of stamps has gone up. So we've saved some postage there, but those are in the process of going out. We have chosen our invitations, which we don't quite need yet, obviously. We're building our wedding website, and we're looking at registries, and we're trying to make some honeymoon decisions, and we have a florist appointment coming up, and so the ball is starting to roll. How was your cruise? Our cruise was lovely. This is clearly a question that was intended for the original Q&A video when we were leaving for the cruise, but our cruise was wonderful. We took a Disney cruise to Alaska. It left from Vancouver, Canada, and it circled up through a couple of stops in Alaska and came back down, and we spent a couple extra days in Vancouver, and it was wonderful. We actually have talked about going back to Vancouver at some point just for a dedicated Vancouver trip, just because we were only there really with about a day and a half of free time. Vancouver was a very cool city. We'd definitely like to focus. I'm right here. Hi. That we'd definitely like to explore more at some point. And Alaska was beautiful. We are not cold weather people at all. We both really hate cold weather. We hate snow. We hate winter. Sorry. But I've always said that I would like to visit Alaska, but I would only do it on a cruise, because you can get back on the boat and get warm drinks and food brought to you and heated pools and, you know, all that good stuff. So that's exactly what we did, and it was perfect. We had gorgeous views. We did really fun excursions. If I think of it, I'll try to stick in some pictures here to share with you, but it was a really lovely trip, and I would highly recommend cruising to Alaska yourself at some point if you ever get the opportunity. What do you do for exercise? Not much. Not much right now. It's been a little bit since I exercised regularly. If you follow me, you may know that I had a tough end to 2018. My dog passed away, and that kind of threw me into a funk. I am someone who already experiences seasonal depression in the wintertime, which basically is, for me, I have the type where if you don't get outside enough and you don't get enough sun, you just become depressed and lethargic. And that's already something that I grapple with every year. I have talked to other friends who experience this as well, and we had already been talking about how it seemed kind of worse this year than usual. And then my dog passed away, and so that was just really tough, and I wasn't about to do anything, let alone exercise, which I already just hate in general. So that kind of threw me out of it, and then there were the holidays, and then I got sick. So it's been several weeks since I did any exercise at all, but I am planning to get back into it. Adam and I are going to, excuse me, I had a voice crack, oh my. Adam and I are going to get back on that wagon together. And so when I exercise, I will do the treadmill. I cannot run. I have medical issues with some of my joints, and I can't run. And so I try to just walk as briskly as I can so that I get my heart rate up. And our apartment complex gym treadmills have timers that will set you at an interval so that you'll have a heavy walk period and then a cool down. So I'll do that, and then if I want to do other stuff, I will try to find exercise videos that I can follow. I like the videos by a YouTube channel called Tone It Up. They have an app as well that is partially free. You have to pay for most of it, but I do the free stuff, and then their YouTube videos are free as well. I'll try to follow some of those. I like them because they are two ladies, and they are very positive and empowering in leading their exercises, and they have a big focus on feeling confident in yourself no matter how much you can stick to the exercise, if you have to take breaks or if you feel weak or whatever. So I like that kind of positivity and message around exercise. But that's what I do. Now the next segment is sponsored by Rachel, who is my best friend and my maid of honor. I've talked about her plenty. She went a little ham submitting questions to this, and I screened some of them, Rach. So if you're dying to know my answers, we can speak privately. Tell us more about Rachel. What does she look like? She looks like this. Rachel and I met in college. We had our freshman, what it's called, seminar together. It's a class that all students at our school have to take. They split you into groups, and we were in the same group, and then we were next door neighbors, and then we were roommates for all the rest of college, and the rest is history. So that's my best friend Rachel. She lives in the greater Philadelphia area, so she's quite far from me most of the time. But that's fine, because nothing can stop our love. What is your favorite Friends character? Regina Phalange. How dare you make me choose? I'm not going to dignify with this with a response. And I'm going to move on, because no, that's not how this works. What is your favorite flavor / brand of tea? So, I have some props for this section. This was my favorite tea of the holiday season. I think they only put this out during the holiday time. This is Celestial Seasonings Sugar Cookie Sleigh Ride. And this is so good. It does taste exactly like a sugar cookie. I don't understand how they do it, but this is so good. So if you still see this out in your stores as the holiday season is ending, I would say to grab some and stock up, because it's amazing. And then in general, my favorite tea for making iced tea, which I love to drink a lot, is a tea called Tezo Passion, which you can find in most grocery stores, I think, and then they have it at Starbucks. You can drink it hot, but I prefer to make it iced, and it is delicious. It is very fruity herbal tea. And overall, I am slowly falling deeply in love with David's Teas as a brand. This was a Christmas gift that I was given this year, and it is a big wheel of tea. Again, rainbows, so aesthetically pleasing. But this is basically a sampler of tea. I used to see knitting podcasters talk about David's Tea a lot in their episodes, and then when Adam and I were on vacation for a cruise, we were in Vancouver, we walked past a David's Tea physical store. So I made him go in with me, and I made him walk around for like 45 minutes while I figured out what I wanted to get. And then I found this online and I asked for it for Christmas, and this has a bunch of different teas in it. My favorite ones so far from David's Tea have been, there's one that is called Seaberry Spa. That one is really good. That one is good hot or iced. And then I also like the Strawberry Rhubarb Parfait. There are a number of other ones in here that I have not tried yet, but those are really good. And the final section of my Q&A list is Webster related. I got a couple of questions about Webster, and of course I had to share. First question is, how old is Webster? Webster is 5 years old. He will be 6 shortly, probably in March-ish. So there you go, Webster is 5 going on 6. And somebody asked, what is Webster's origin story? Webster has been with me since he was a kitten, and essentially he is a rescue cat. He is a male ginger rescue. He was found feral with his brother and sister as kittens in a trap in the woods. So somebody had set up some type of trap in the woods, and the kittens got in there. People at the animal control office said that they thought maybe the mother left them in there because they thought they would be safe there, and then she never came back. But they were found there, and they were brought in to animal control. It was Webster and a brother and a sister. They were brought in together to animal control and put up for adoption and put into a foster home, which is how I found him. I was looking online to adopt a kitty cat, and their profile came up. So I agreed to meet the foster mom at a designated location to meet the kittens and see which one I might like. And then by the time she got to me, he was the last one left. So his sister was calico. She was beautiful. And then his brother was kind of like the inverse of Webster's colors. His brother was white and had a couple of orange spots on him. He was very cute. But I got to my meeting with the foster mom, and Webster was the last one left. And she told me that, you know, the brother and the sister had already been adopted that day. They'd been chosen by other people, but here was the orange one if I was interested in him. And she handed him to me. He was like a little handful like this. And I just kind of held him up here, and he perched himself right here, and then he reached one paw out and he gave me a high five. And that's when I knew that he was mine. Did not come with the name Webster. They were found in the spring. I adopted him around May, and he was roughly 8 to 10 weeks old. So they guessed that he was born in March or so, and they were born in springtime. So the foster animal control people gave Webster and his siblings spring-themed names. So he had a different name when she gave him to me, but obviously he didn't know it. So I named him Webster because I have an English degree and I'm a nerd. So I named him after the dictionary. And that is his story. That is Webster's tale. And what is Webster's favorite pastime? Sitting on whatever I'm doing. He likes to get in the way. He likes to steal my seat. He likes to beg for food, and he likes to knock things down. He's a stereotype, and that's fine. He's probably sleeping in my desk chair right now. This is my lunchtime from work, so I left my chair at my desk empty, and he's in a phase where he's really obsessed with that chair. So he's probably there taking a nap right now. But that is Webster. And that is all my questions. So if you have more questions for me, you can leave them in the comments under this video, or you can head to the Ravelry group, join, and post in the thread there. I hope you enjoyed this and it was entertaining in some way and answered the burning questions I'm sure you had about me. If you're looking for the next episode of the podcast, I do plan to record and put one out this week, so keep your eyes peeled for that very soon. Thanks so much for watching. If you were new, I hope it was an adventure. And I hope you choose to come back and watch regular episodes. If you were a return viewer, thanks for coming back and sticking around. If you want to keep up with me, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can follow me on my social media, which is all linked below. And I'll see you soon. Bye!